All right, we are going to take you live to Edmonton now, where Stephen Lewis getting some applause from delegates at the NDP National Convention. He is about to address them. Let's listen in.
Tom Mulcair, members of the Federal Caucus, distinguished delegates, brothers and sisters, I feel privileged to be at a podium that was occupied by Rachel Notley. When I heard her recite the extraordinary achievements of the first few months of government, my mind went back to a campaign in Saskatchewan in the mid-50s when I was lucky enough to travel with Tommy Douglas as he recited the same kind of litany of achievements, and I thought to myself, what lovely historical continuity from Tommy's days then to Rachel's days now, and how much the Democratic left has brought to the social and political culture of Canada. I approach the podium in a buoyant frame of mind. In fact, I'm in such good spirits that it's positively indecent. I realize, of course, that my demeanor is entirely out of whack. After all, we suffered a crushing setback in the federal election. I should be brooding, surly, gloomy, curmudgeonly, all the symptoms of demoralizing defeat. But I'm none of those things. I'm truly insufferably buoyant. And there are two reasons why. First, I've been through it all before. When I was provincial leader of the NDP in Ontario, I led the party to 3 successive second or third place finishes. I've often said that my tenure of leader was marked by transcendental futility. And with great respect, by comparison, Tom Mulcair is a mere amateur. Second, the Liberals have already begun to fray. That doesn't mean the bloom is off the Justin Rose. It will last for a while longer. He's a Prime Minister of amiable disposition and appearance. Sure, he's riding high in the polls today, but that's the most ephemeral thing in the world. The test comes on policy, not aesthetics. And predictably, the Liberals are already shuffling backwards into the precincts of ignominy where they so comfortably reside. I must admit, as I launch into my remarks, that this is a difficult speech to make. I'm not at all sure that I've gauged the atmosphere accurately. I want to set out very selectively, I say selectively because you can't possibly cover everything, a number of issues where the approach, the analysis, the policy of the NDP differs profoundly from that of the Liberal government. This isn't a matter of some minute repositioning of the NDP to the left of the Liberals. This is a matter of fundamentals. We differ from the Liberals on so many issues, in so many ways, that there's a world to conquer. I don't get this stuff about the blurring and meshing of the so-called center-left. Allow me then, on your behalf, to count some of the ways. First, feminism. It's a huge pleasure to have a Prime Minister who unselfconsciously calls himself a feminist, and the clever use of the phrase, "It's 2015, has now entered the lexicon of political memorabilia. But we have a message for the Prime Minister. Feminism is a vacant construct without a childcare program across Canada. You don't provide childcare with a limited financial transfer to individual families. You provide childcare as a matter of well-funded public policy with spaces for all who need them and trained early childhood educators to staff them. In terms of social policy, there's arguably nothing more important for this country at this moment. Someone has to tell the Prime Minister of Canada that the use of feminism has a hypocritical ring when the women of Canada, who play the central role in the raising of children, are denied the childcare to which they are entitled as of right. Second, electoral reform. The Prime Minister has said ad nauseum that we will never again fight a Canadian election based on the system of first past the post. Bravo. Canadians in various opinion surveys have indicated a significant plurality in favour of change. And the change everyone is talking about is proportional representation. But there's an ominous, unprincipled cloud emerging. In the guarded, cautious language employed by the Prime Minister, it becomes clear, ever so clear, that there will be a variation on the present electoral process, but the variation will protect and benefit the government. You don't need prophetic vision to know that we're about to experience one of those brazenly cynical political moments. The sonorous sounds of desirable change will mask the self-serving manipulation of desirable change. It would appear that something called ranked ballots now has the inner track in the mind of the government. And to use Ed Broadbent's evocative phrase, it would be like the first past-the-post system on steroids. But it would be conveyed as qualitative change. I could say, how disappointing. Electoral reform is an issue whose time has come. Proportional representation cries out for implementation. But whom are we kidding? Do we really think that the government will relinquish the cozy asylum of political advantage? This is a fight we have to win. It should consume our collective energies. Third, Bill C-51. Here's the nemesis, if ever there was one. This piece of hoked-up anti-terror legislation, so excessive in tone and content, so contemptuous of civil liberties, so effectively lacerated during the course of the election campaign, is apparently sticking around, largely in its present form, to live another day. Our Prime Minister, having promised significant changes to the bill, is again subsiding into the shadows of incrementalism. You see, he didn't mistakenly support the bill and then scramble for redemption by suggesting there would be amendments. The Prime Minister truly and fundamentally agrees with the bill and will offer only the most cosmetic shifts in wording and nuance. You have to smile, a grim, tight-lipped smile. Liberals never disappoint. Fourth, health care. Herein lies one of the most distressing gaps in the budget. There is no provision for a redesigned funding formula for health care into the future. I remember all the way back to the Charlottetown Accord, when another survey of Canadians, attempting to identify our defining characteristic, revealed overwhelmingly that it was health care. That's what Canadians most cared about, and I dare say the same sentiments would be expressed today. It's our issue. From Tommy Douglas to Roy Romano, it's our issue. We cannot allow it to be depreciated or trifled with. Modern, sophisticated economies do not regard health as a soft sector. Public health lies at the very heart of the International Sustainable Development Goals, goals meant to govern public policy for the next 15 years, goals effectively ratified by every one of the 193 member states of the United Nations, Canada, of course, included. It is now finally understood worldwide that resources for health are the sine qua non of a civilized society and the foundation of economic growth. We have so much ground yet to cover. The Liberal pledge for home care appears to have been abandoned, and universal pharmacare is nowhere to be seen. Those are programs that we must pursue as though life depended on it, because, in fact, life does depend on it. Fifth, international trade agreements. The economist, Joseph Stiglitz, recently said that he'd met with Chrystia Freeland, the Liberal Minister for International Trade, at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland in January. Now, just to provide the context, setting Stiglitz aside for a moment, the World Economic Forum is a gathering overwhelmingly of multinational corporate leadership with a sprinkling of politicians and Bill Gates types who engage in a protracted orgy of self-congratulation about how they collectively save the world. People who attend are not what you would call left of center. Stiglitz is an anomaly. He apparently pressed on Chrystia Freeland the negative consequences of signing the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and according to Stiglitz, she seemed to understand. Poor Joseph. How was he to know that he was taken down the Trans-Pacific path? Less than 2 weeks later, the minister signed the TPP in New Zealand in the presence of 12 Pacific Rim partners. It was said to be ceremonial. It is said that extensive consultations will take place across Canada before there's a House of Commons vote. Is there anyone in this hall who thinks the TPP won't be formally endorsed by the Government of Canada? Of course it will. The irony is that with both Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders coming out against the TPP, it may not even be embraced by the United States. And rightly so. And rightly so. The TPP, as with so many other current international trade agreements, results in the loss of jobs, possible loss of 60,000 projected for Canada. And the investor-state dispute provisions put at risk Canada's autonomy as a democratic state. Foreign corporations, were they to claim unfair treatment, can effectively bypass Canadian laws and seek compensation from an international tribunal. And there is no appeal. These are ridiculous provisions, the ugly quintessence of corporate capitalism. But that's not all. There is an even more pernicious aspect at work. As I learned painfully over the years involved with HIV and AIDS, one of the greatest benefits of these trade agreements is conferred on the brand-named drug companies. They negotiate and receive preferential patent privileges that undermine the manufacture of equivalent generic drugs. For the pharmaceutical industry, the trade agreements are a financial bonanza. For impoverished citizens of developing countries, fighting communicable and non-communicable disease, they can be, and often are, a disaster. For countries like Canada, they will inevitably mean an increase in prescription drug prices. No government of Canada should lend itself to the knee-jerk signing of the TPP. No government of Canada in this day and age should embrace the discordant siren song of free trade. Sixth, arms sales. What in heaven's name possesses the Liberal government to consummate the sale of light armored vehicles to Saudi Arabia? It reveals so much about this government, so much that cries out for an aggressive political response. The arms sale shows an astonishing contempt for human rights. Not only has the government of Saudi Arabia recently been excoriated by the United Nations for the conduct of war in Yemen, the wholesale and indiscriminate slaughter of civilian populations, but it's also a country where the beheadings of dissidents rivals the madness of ISIL. There is absolutely no guarantee that the weapons in question won't be used at some point to assault the Shia minority within Saudi Arabia. We're talking about a regime whose hands are drenched in blood. And of course, that's not all. The sale also directly contradicts stated Canadian policy. We're not supposed to be sending armaments to countries that have a, quote, persistent record of serious violations of the human rights of their citizens, close quote. Saudi Arabia is the embodiment of the meaning of the word violations. And the Government of Canada refuses to release its so-called assessment of the human rights situation in Saudi Arabia. So much for the newly minted policy of transparency. But perhaps what is most offensive and revealing in all of this is the proposition oft stated by the Foreign Minister that the contract is sacrosanct. It can't be broken. We know that Stéphane Dion is a nice fellow. He must be privately writhing with the disingenuous guff he is forced to disgorge. We're in the earliest stages of this sale, and the sale is overseen by the government. What do you mean you can't break the contract? What you mean is that you won't break the contract. And with the greatest respect, and with the greatest respect, that's just nonsensical claptrap. As is the proposition that if we pull out, others will fill the gap. Well, let them. What kind of twisted logic is it that says we should cozy up to murderers because if we don't, others will? And I know you will agree with me on this because there's an additional matter that I wish someone would put to the Prime Minister one day in question period. What kind of feminism is it that sells weapons to a government steeped in misogyny?